Hello folks, Bob Hothem with the Alternative Board Miami Valley and with our client today with Scenic Solutions, Mary Beth McLaughlin. Mary Beth, thanks for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
Why don't you tell the folks a little bit about what Scenic Solutions does? Or maybe it's more like, what don't you do?
Well, we have grown our company over the last 26 years and started out just building scenery. Do scenery for cruise ships, touring shows, we do museum exhibits. We have branched out into lighting for not only live events venues, but architectural lighting. We do systems integrations. We work with such people as the Dayton Art Institute, the Arcade here in town, Royal Caribbean, Norwegian Cruise Line. We do stuff with some of the touring production companies that tour the country.
Right.
So we are not just local, we are global. And we pretty much, like you said, what don't we do? We pretty much do everything.
Right. I've always been impressed. Every time I come in there, you're doing something different. Well, that's kind of interesting in that regard.
We'd like to be challenged.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to generate too much pain, but I'd like to revisit 2020 just briefly.
Okay.
So in early March, we got out of bed one morning and we learned that we were closing down the economy. And one of the companies that was, or one of the organization, or one of the entities being closed down is live entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
And as I recall, you work in the live entertainment
Yes.
industry. And then all of a sudden you learned that you were, even though you're a mid-7-figure size company, you were non-essential.
Mm-hmm.
How'd that go over?
As my mom used to say, like a lead balloon.
Yeah, right. My
It
mom said
was-
that too.
It was like a punch in the gut. I mean, we are a hardworking company. We're a small company, but we love what we do. We love our employees. We are motivated, and to be told that you're not important enough to continue to work and pay your employees. And
Right.
we had to lay them off. We couldn't afford to keep them on for an unknown amount of weeks paying them. So we laid everyone off except for our management staff and hunkered down to figure out how to get through this.
Right.
And we thought it would last for a while. I don't think anybody knew how long it would last. We saw our business, we lost every job but the one that was in our shop when things shut down. We watched 90% of the new work that we were talking to people about go away. Some of it has come back because they delayed things.
Right.
We had 32 employees at the beginning of 2020, and we ended up ultimately being down 40% on our staff because of layoffs and people that
Right.
left that we did not replace.
Right. Tell me some things that you did in terms of your business, maybe your business processes, how you approach things and so forth, that helped you survive the storm. I guess since you work on cruise ships, survive the storm might be an appropriate term.
It's right.
But anyway, tell us some of those things that you did.
We just started wear multiple hats because when we started to lay people off, we of course the extra people that we had hired that just helped get things done, like having an administrative assistant, that person we laid off. All those things that person did, we split those jobs up between the management staff. Dan and I took on a lot more duties and tasks than we had before because we weren't really able to sell the company because there was no one to talk to.
Right.
So we did find that we had more time to work on other things. And Dan spent a lot of 2020 and the beginning and up until now working on a database that is for our project managers.
Well, it was a pretty much a new ERP system.
Yes,
right?
yes.
Yeah,
And
okay.
he spent a lot of time doing that. That's beyond my scope. But I can jump in and do, entering bills, doing administrative, paying checks, some of those things that an administrative assistant would do. And because I ran the sewing department before that, and nothing was going on. I wasn't making any orders, I wasn't doing anything custom. I had more time. And then we eventually were without an accountant, so I learned even more accounting skills while Dan continued to work on this project management software. And slowly we realized what was really important. We discovered that we can hire out someone to take care of all of our HR duties, do our payroll, things that take us a lot of time, but we don't know how to do them all the time because you don't do some of those tasks every single week. And
Right.
for someone to take care of your HR duties has become huge. So we learned what was really important and what we could do the best at.
Mm-hmm.
And Our staff that stayed on were phenomenal. They were all willing to jump in and do other things. They understood what we were going through. I don't know that we could have gotten through the last year without the people, not just Dan and I and our management team, but the whole staff, the whole company, because they were so willing to understand how hard it was and what could they do to help.
Right, right. I should make folks aware that the Dan she's talking about is both her personal and professional partner.
Yes.
Dan is co-owner of Scenic Solutions. They started his business obviously back, I think, like 96 or something like that in that regard. So that's the Dan in that scenario. Okay, so what things did you learn in 2020 that you're now applying in 2021? First of all, has your business rebounded?
We have not totally rebounded. We are seeing more things happen. Obviously, since cruise ships are talking about sailing and there are some limited cruises going on and theaters are talking about getting shows back again, we are in talks with people and clients, potential and current clients, for the jobs. They're just waiting for, when can they have a full theater to have a show? When can they actually sail a cruise ship? So we have seen some stuff rebound, but in this past year, we've managed to pick up some really good local jobs and have really grown our business in the local community.
As I recall, transitioned a little bit out of your core business area. Yeah.
We've been doing more architectural lighting. We do lighting for theater and entertainment venues, but we have been working with the arcade for the rotunda lighting. We did lighting on the outside of the Dayton Art Institute, so that they can light that in many colors.
I've seen it. It's beautiful.
Yeah, and we've had the chance to work with many churches. Some have bought small products and some we've done a lot more for. So it's just, some of the churches too discovered that since they didn't have weekly services, they could take the time to do some things in their churches they hadn't been able to do for a long time.
Yeah. That's interesting. And in some industries you've never worked in before, suddenly you're generating revenue. That's great. So give me a couple of ideas of things you learned in 2020 that you've applied and has made you a better organization in 2021.
We learned just what money you should spend on what. And I don't just say that as to whether or not you have a cleaning crew come into your offices and clean them, but it's like, how much training can you afford to do? Can you afford to keep training your people? Are you going to pause that?
Right.
But we learned to think about everything we spent money on, but we also learned what was really important, and we took that stuff we learned and we were able to find some funding with the state of Ohio's Tech Cred program and get some training for some of our employees for different things, and then we get reimbursed back for it.
Right.
So we were able to, really think about how we could do some training. There was some training we did within house that then they can go out and get tested and get certifications. So we really just thought about every single thing we did. And how could we make it better? And did we really need it going forward?
So, just being more judicious about everything that you do. You mentioned earlier the ERP system. I sense it's up and running now. And how's that going? Has that impacted your business?
Yes, it has. It allows anyone who is working on a job, even if they're doing an install, a site survey, they're a project manager, they can enter information into the system about the job, whether they are entering purchase orders to purchase something, credit card receipts, work reports. So all the information for a job goes into one place, and you can click on that job within the system and see all this information. It keeps track of budgets, which is the most important part. And it allows anyone working on that project to see how much money is being spent. The hours the employees work from our time clocks get put into that system so they know where they're at on hours. And so it has really made the project managers in particular pay close attention to what they're doing. And they are forced to see how much money they're spending instead of just buying and not paying attention to who's paying the bills.
Right. So obviously you're watching profitability and hours because a high percentage of your dollar value is labor.
Yes, it is.
So this system appears to be keeping very close track of labor.
It does.
And knowing your husband like I do, he probably watches it very closely.
Yes, he does. We get a
Precisely.
weekly report in
Oh, is
various
that right?
ways.
I would suspect Dan is sneaking in every once in a while
Oh,
between weeks.
that's just when we see the reports.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
sure he
okay,
looks at it
okay.
multiple times a day.
Yeah, precisely. So anything else you learned in 2020 that you are applying in 2021? You know, you talked about being cognizant of what you spend. You didn't say it, but my sense is that you really focused on the employee culture in that regard, my sense is.
We
And then, of
did.
course, just keeping a better track of all your costs and so forth. So my final question then becomes, private business owners are watching this on the LinkedIn and other social media. A pointer or two that you might give them going forward from what you've learned in the last 18 months.
Don't give up. I mean, if it's really what you want to do, Dan and I got to a point very early on that we realized we could lose everything. I mean,
Right.
we could lose the business, we could lose the house we were living in, and we weren't willing to do that. We were not willing to give up and not have a business anymore. We couldn't imagine working for somebody else, but we couldn't imagine, more importantly, doing anything else.
Right.
And if it's really what you want to do, just keep working as hard as you can.
Keep
And
going
there is a
ahead.
payoff. Some
Cool.
days there's a daily payoff, sometimes it pays off in a longer time period, but there is a payoff.
So be patient.
Be patient, yep.
Great. Super. Well, Mary Beth, thanks so much for sharing your story and coming in today and when chatting with us in that regard. Mary Beth McLaughlin with Scenic Solutions, and I'm Bob Hothem with the Alternative Board, Miami Valley.